Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fringe Coverage. This podcast profiles the stories, swings, and stars of the LPGA Tour. Whether you're new to women's golf or a longtime fan, hopefully this helps you develop your own rooting interests in women's professional golf. And Tom, we are in for a treat today. Joining the podcast for the first time, we have one of the preeminent voices in golf, the longtime play-by-play commentator for Golf Channel, anchor for CBS's extended coverage of major championships, including Amen Corner at the Masters, an Emmy-award winning broadcaster for the 2024 Paris Olympics, and what we care most about, the voice of the LPGA Tour live tournament coverage on NBC. Please welcome Grant Boone. Grant, thank you so much for joining us on Fringe Coverage.
Hey, Mark and Tom, it's a delight to be with you, and I've enjoyed listening to your pod, so I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say next.
And Mark, I was trying to figure out the best analogy I could think of for this. It's like if we were to start an astrophysics podcast, and on episode 5, we got Neil deGrasse Tyson on. So no pressure.
No pressure, wow. Grant.
Yeah, I think his academic rigor was a little tougher than mine, majoring in radio and television. But I tell you what, nobody loves their job more than I do, and I can't believe I get to do it every week. It's great fun. I love calling men's and women's golf, but 25 years covering the LPGA has just been a blast.
And as you know, we just started this podcast, and we chose a very interesting time to do so because after this past tournament, there have been 24 different winners over 23 events. So in your opinion, what would you attribute this parity to?
I think a couple of things are happening. I think I think on some level it's cyclical. A couple of years ago, we went through back-to-back years of like 10 and 11 first-time winners, and then we didn't have hardly any last year. There were no rookies who won last year. And then this year, we've had 7 rookies now win after Miranda Wong got the win in Boston. And so you have a couple of things going on, I think, specifically, besides the fact that things are just cyclical. Number one, it's never been harder to win than it is right now on the LPGA Tour. Literally every corner of the globe is sending their best players to the LPGA, far more rich and culturally diverse than the PGA Tour, which has some really nice international players. But if you look at the LPGA membership, you've got stars, legit stars from everywhere. You've even got Natalia Guseva from Russia. Every year there'll be a new country that sends a player to the LPGA. So you've got the whole world sending their best. And that's never been more evident than, for example, the JLPGA last year, which is a great tour, the Japan LPGA Tour. They've got 35, 40 events, mostly 3-day events, a few 72 holes, but mostly 3 days. And most of the time you can get to them fairly easily by train. The travel's not extended. So a lot of people like to stay there. But in the last couple of years, we've seen the best from the JLPGA come over, much in the way that the best from the Korea LPGA Tour came over 10, 15, 20 years ago. Last year, of the top 5 players on the JLPGA money list, 4 of them chose to go to the LPGA. 3 of them went to Q School. 1 of them, Rio Takeda, actually won a co-sanctioned LPGA, JLPGA event in Japan that gave her membership on the LPGA Tour. 3 others, Miyu Yamashita and the EY twins, Akie and Chisato, they made up 4 of the top 5 on the money list last year in Japan. They've all won this year.
Jeez.
And they are, and one of them's won a major, Miyu, at the AIG Women's Open. So you've literally got the best from around the world coming. And then this is kind of the cyclical part. Last year, Nelly won 7 times. Hannah Green won 3 times. Lydia Ko won 3 times. You also had Ronnie Yin won 3 times. And they're all great players. Ronnie hasn't won this year. Hannah Green hasn't won this year. Lydia won very early in the year. Nelly hasn't won this year. Brooke hadn't won until 2 weeks ago in Canada. Jin Young Ko hasn't won in more than 2 years. You've got these great, so you got 24 winners, and not even including Nelly and Jin.
You got
Young
some horses in that stable that haven't
Hannah,
won. Yeah,
absolutely. Ronnie, Lilia Vu hasn't won this year, and she's really struggling. And so I think what you've seen is very, very good players be unable to get on that kind of roll. And as you know, unlike tennis, and I love the U.S. Open, which I'm watching these last couple of weeks, you know, with very rare exceptions, who's going to be in the round of 16. You can probably these days know who's going to be, quarters and semis, because it would be a monumental upset, for Sinner or on the women's side for Coco to lose early, in a I guess she did at Wimbledon, but it just doesn't happen that often. Golf is it's just hard to predict. It's so the vagaries of it are such that you just can't really predict. So you've got great players, deeper fields than there've ever been, and you've got the best of the best who just haven't quite been as good. Now, why haven't they been quite as good? I think it goes hand in hand with the other thing, that they're playing better and better players every week. Gino won the Mizuho Americas Open in May. She also won a huge LET event back in February, but in terms of LPGA events, it took the greatest finish in the history of major championship golf by Grace Kim to keep Gino from being a repeat winner. It took a rookie, Miranda Wong, birdieing a very hard hole, and it took Gino bogeying off a little bit of a bad break on the 17th for Gino not to win. Gino could easily have 3 or 4 or 5 wins right now. Some of it is how good the fields are, and some of it's just the vagaries of golf.
Well, and this is well documented, and I think you've shared this in other interviews as well. I mean, Nelly's not playing bad golf. Nelly statistically is having.
Nelly, that's exactly right. Yeah, you're right. Nelly's scoring average is good. She's not played her best on the weekends, and when if you shoot 70 on the weekend, you're going to get lapped.
Yeah.
It just happens. So you're right. She's playing well, but not when she has to do it. And sometimes, like, Nelly hasn't missed a cut. I promise you, Nelly would gladly give you a couple of missed cuts for a couple of wins. Like,
sure.
So it's when she had chances last year. I'm trying to think. So I haven't thought this through as carefully as I probably should have. But last year she won 7 times. In terms of other events where she was right there with a chance, the only one that comes to mind is St. Andrews, when she had the lead on the back 9 Sunday and made a double bogey, missed a short putt for double on the 14th, and then Lydia won. There really, without going back and checking, I don't really remember there being a time when Nelly was right there late on a Sunday and didn't win. When she got in position, she closed the door. Right. This year, when she's gotten into position on the weekends, she's fallen back on Saturday, and the few times she's been up there on a Sunday, she's not made the move. So her 2 worst scoring days of the year of the week this year are Saturday, Sunday. It's tough.
It's a tough way to finish. It's a tough way to easy way to make cuts. That's for sure. You're playing well days 1 and 2.
Absolutely. That's right. So think if you reverse that. Let's say her worst scoring days were Thursday, Friday. She might have a couple of missed cuts in there, but what if she shot a 65 weekend? She might have a win or 2.
Especially with her presence. If she's making a final group or if she's on a leaderboard, there is some gravity there of when you see that name on the board, similar to a Scotty or someone else. Like she and Scotty were kind of running in parallel tracks last year with her outperforming him in terms of the
Yeah.
numbers. But yeah, Nelly's name on a scoreboard can cause some fear, and we just really have, like you said, we haven't seen it on Sundays. And like you said, we're this deep into a year of no repeat winners, and yet one of those names isn't the person that clipped off 7 last year and got a third of her way to their Hall of Fame in one season.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I heard you all rattling off kind of where people stood in terms of the Hall of Fame, and I think that is, she started last year with 8 wins, and she ended with 15. I mean, she almost.
Sheesh.
And I was scouring the record books and asking the LPGA to help me with this. I can't remember another player who won almost as many as her career wins when she started with that many. In other words,
Right.
there were people who had no wins like Ariya Jutanugarn, and she won 5 times back in 2016. But to go from, I mean, if you have 8 wins, you've already had a very good career.
Yeah.
And then to win 7 times on top of that, it was an amazing year in a lot of ways. It was really good for the LPGA Tour. One thing that you just mentioned that I'd love to explore more, and I've actually heard my colleagues say it, and we've debated this a little bit. I do wonder these days what Nelly's name on a leaderboard means, or what Scotty's name means. And I think there's such a different mentality than there used to be. I wonder if Miranda Wong really was she really rattled by Gino's name up there? She didn't seem to be. She actually, and I even said this on the broadcast, Gino's the one who blinked, if you want to look at it that way. She's the one who made bogey at 17, and Miranda made the birdie. Here's another component to what we were just saying earlier. Why is it happening like this? Miranda was a college, not a star, but she did help Duke win a national title. She hadn't even, she was not one of their best players, but she had the clinching point to give them the 2019 title. And then she goes to the Epson Tour after playing the Women's All-Pro Tour, which is kind of double A. She won at every level. And I just think players are coming to this tour more and more. I think it's happening in men's golf as well, more ready to win. I mean, Nick Dunlap last year won on the PGA Tour. I think Lottie Woe just won as an amateur on the LET. Darn near won a major as an amateur at Evian. I think you're going to see an amateur win. And, the only ones in the last 50 years were Lydia. Lydia's it in the last 50 plus years. My colleague Morgan Pressel, if not for maybe the luckiest shot in major championship history, would have won a major, would have won the U.S. Open at the age of 17 as an amateur. So there've been some who've come close, but I think you're going to see, I just think players come out on tour and they're not afraid to win, and I think we saw that from Miranda. She had the one chance earlier this year in Mexico, got into the final group on Saturday in Mexico, shot 73, and then I think 74 on Sunday, and really clearly benefited from being in that spot. And most people need a couple of, a couple of times in that spot. Very few win the very first time they get up into that position. So Miranda used that to her advantage. I think Miranda's a great example of the tour in 2025.
Well, and I think that's, as a group, the three of us all have the same objective in mind, right? In terms of there are so many amazing stories. The talent has never been better.
Yeah.
And as a group who's trying to bring attention to this tour, there are some very easy stories. If we pitched this podcast last year, Tom and Mark are probably talking a lot about the dominance of Nelly, right? Sure. And there's a seminal figure that everyone's going to rally their attention around and say, wow, there's something's pretty special happening. For better or for worse, very easy thing to wrap your head around as potentially a new fan if you're getting involved with the LPGA and you're starting to become more than just a casual watcher. When you talk about all of this parity that we're experiencing this season with all of these different winners, how do you think that parity and currently lack of dominance impacts fan interest one way or the other?
It's a great question. I think you always, I think most any sport, there could be some exceptions. I think in a team sport like football, maybe English Premier League with relegation and promotion, maybe parity plays a little better. I think in sports like tennis and golf, tennis was blessed with Serena for so many years. Now there are some really, really good players on the women's side. And you've got, I think, a budding, rivalry, one that could be the next 10 years with Sinner and Alcaraz. If there's a different winner of the majors every year in tennis or golf, I love it all. I don't care who wins. I just want to see great golf, and I want to tell good stories. And to me, every story is a good one, because every story is different. But I would say if you could draw it up, central casting, Nelly is it. Nelly for an American-based tour to have a homegrown. She really represents the American dream in a lot of ways. I mean, she's a first-generation American. Her parents were, great athletes and champions in their own right. They had three amazing kids who are, all strikingly attractive and brilliant athletes and in two different sports. And, they're captivating in terms of their ability. And so when you see someone doing something that hasn't been done in all these years, for Nelly, it was the most wins by an American since 1990. And I would argue, and Beth Daniel, who won 7 times in 1990, is a dear friend and a former colleague of mine at Golf Channel. I would argue that I think it's always been hard to win. And the players Beth had to beat were great players. There weren't as many of them, though. And it was an American tour. When she won the majority of her wins, it was during, a time when America, most of the players were American. In the 90s, we had the European invasion, late 90s, early 2000s. Korea came in. Japan has had a steady growing presence, but whenever I can say this is the first time in 35 years, when Rose Zhang won her first start, this is a little inside baseball here. When Rose got the sponsor's invite after turning pro to play the Mizuho America's Open back in 2023, she had just won the NCAA championship for a second time. No one had ever won it back-to-back. She did. And she had just won the Augusta National Women's Amateur in April. And she turns pro, gets the sponsor's invite, and she wins. And as she's moving up the leaderboard on Friday and taking the lead, into Sunday, I'm looking up players who won their pro debut. It's not even something you can look up. I mean, it's not something, it's so preposterous that no one keeps that stat, such as oldest winner or youngest winner or whatever. It wasn't there. And so I'm scouring all of these, various databases and, wearing Google out to figure out, how this, when the last time this happened. And you find out the last time was 1951, the second year of the LPGA. I still can't find a guy who's done it. It may have happened, but literally, not your first start, like Russell Henley won his first start as a tour member, but he had played in a PGA Tour event before that. Winning your first, those are the kinds of things that to me are captive. And for Rose to have done it, it's sunset, Statue of Liberty out in the harbor.
It's perfect.
Yes, you love that. Now, to me, I see what Miranda Wong did in Boston. I love that. We had her coach on the phone during the broadcast, Dan Brooks, and he's telling us about Miranda. And I'm looking up all these incredible nuggets. Like, she goes to the Epson Tour Championship last year, 23rd on the points list. Top 15 get their cart. That was the first year that it was 15.
Yep.
She was 15th the year before, but only the top 10 got in. She's 23rd. She birdies her last 2 holes to finish 3rd and move to 14th. So she got the next to last. If she birdies one of those 2, she's on the outside looking in. Instead, she birdies both of the last 2 holes at the last event of the year to get her card. It's not even very good status, but it's at least you're a member. 1 through 10 get better status. 11 through 15 on the Epson, they get kind of buried on the priority list. But she got into China, where she's from, made the cut, finished 8th. All of a sudden, she reshuffles it. You talk about in the weeds. I mean, the priority list on the LPGA Tour is this Byzantine, kind of brain-frying document that you try to explore and get to know as best you can. But she works her way up. Now she gets into more events. Now she's an LPGA winner. I love that story. She's from China. I don't care where they're from. It's a great story, You always love to see Annika, Lorena, Kari Webb, Nancy Lopez, Julie Inkster, Lydia Ko. Give me somebody winning 4, 5, 6 times. That does tend, Michelle Wee, even something a little different, but I always think, and I work for obviously NBC Golf Channel, but I think what would make ESPN, which doesn't really have any investment at all in the LPGA Tour, there are a handful of events where they'll have featured group coverage that airs on ESPN Plus, but it's not produced by ESPN. So in other words, if they don't really have an investment, think about how much they've poured into women's basketball.
Right.
The WNBA, they have women's college basketball. If they're invested, they're going to put it. So if they're not invested in something and it still makes SportsCenter or ESPN's web app or whatever, I'll say, okay, it's not realistic that that's going to happen every week. But I do love years like Nelly when she wins 7 times, Lydia when she wins 3 times plus wins the gold medal to get into the Hall of Fame. You always, I think what you just want now. See, this year could be interesting if you keep saying, could we go the whole year and never have a repeat winner? I want anything that gets people to pay attention.
For sure. Okay, so last episode, again, we're on this journey together to learn with our audience. There's things we know, there's things that we're researching as we go and making sure we share with the audience. And
same
good.
Here.
Well, we're on a little bit different tracks. We might still be in the 101 or 102 series right now. You might be teaching some of these classes here. Yeah. We are on what might be a never-ending quest, but on a quest nonetheless to find Tom's favorite player. So
I heard that.
So Tom is probably the biggest sports fan I know. So if I have a question about a sport, invariably I'm going to him. This is probably the one sport that's not true. It's the other way around. Tom will come to me on LPGA.
Confirmed.
Everything else is especially we have some deep 90s basketball ties, me and Tom. We can go real deep there, and we will not do that on this podcast, I promise. But you heard he's a big Allen Iverson fan. So what we've gone on this quest to say, all right, well, what's Tom looking for in a golfer? And I said, hey, I'm going to serve as your sommelier. I want to get the criteria, then I'll suggest some nice wines for you. I'm going to do a pivot here, Grant. There's someone who's a far better sommelier than me on this call. So I'm going to rehash what Tom's criteria are for what he's looking for in a golfer. And I'm curious what golfers come to mind. And I'll provide a couple caveats. Tom does not want a front runner. He doesn't want to appear as a front runner. He doesn't want to, he thinks it's cheap to come on and say, well, my new favorite golfer is Nelly Korda. And I said, hey, I understand what you're trying to do there, but Nelly Korda is going to check a lot of these boxes. And I think you should root for what naturally appeals to you. He is also, Tom is someone that likes someone that stands out. So, and again, I'm going to throw, he said not to, I believe his exact words last podcast were not to denigrate anybody, but I'm not looking for Patrick Cantlay. Again, someone who's great at their craft, but not looking to be famous for any other reason other than that. So Tom's 5 criteria as he listed them were first and foremost, great personality on and off the course, a good dresser. That fashion matters a lot to Tom. Loves the driver, loves to pull driver, and kind of with that, an aggressive style of play, someone who's going to go at pins, even when laying up might be the smart choice. Tom does not play golf that way. I can tell you that firsthand, and he wants his favorite golfer to be that way as well. And then he added on a fifth piece of criteria, which may prove to be a bit of an anomaly to fit in here, but he does like someone who putts unorthodox because Tom, in fact, is right-handed and putts left-handed. So again, whether someone's got a long putter, they do cross grip, they go offhand, that would be an added bonus. Tom, I miss anything there?
No, but I do think that Nelly Corda is back on the list as somebody who hasn't won this year. So I don't mind saying,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're not front running. She
I
hasn't
can.
won
She's
anything
not.
this
I'm not
year.
front running, right?
Okay.
I'm going to
I
pick
like
somebody who hasn't won all year.
Yeah. I asked if age mattered. I think anywhere in their career is fine. I think Tom and I deal with you'd love an up and comer, but
Yeah.
I think you want someone that's established winner. So Grant, with that in mind, you're pouring the wine tonight. Where should Tom start watching and broadcast? We're not going to decide it today, but we want to point him in the direction of who he should watch. I'm curious who comes to mind.
Yeah, Mark, I feel like I gave you this homework assignment and then you passed it off to somebody who
You know,
might do a better job.
I'm the chat GPT.
You're
Mark's
the
doing his homework.
Chat GB. This is
Yeah,
Chat GB
chat
right here.
GB.
All right.
I feel like, by the way, have you ever been to a restaurant that has a sommelier? There's a great place in Vegas called Hugo's Cellar. It's in Old Vegas. It's at the bottom of the Four Queens Hotel. I need a sponsorship because I've talked about them all the time. And John is an Englishman, been there for 40 years, and he wears the scoop around his neck, and so he'll take a little sip to make sure it, in Vegas it gets 150 degrees. He's got to make sure the wine is still good. That's also a good way to get a few sips each night.
Yeah.
On the bill of whoever you're serving.
I used to work at a wine store I worked at a wine store since I was probably 15, and I did for about 20 years. And so, as a 15-year-old, I wasn't really the best sommelier out there, but people would
I
come to
hope
me and
not.
ask me questions, and I developed not a good palate, but a good BS palate, and I was able to look at a wine and just, kind of listen to what my dad, who was the owner of the store, would say, and what the other coworkers would say, and I would kind of start using these terms like full-bodied or
Yes,
yeah,
notes, the notes.
the notes, the floral notes, and then
Really tannic.
oh yeah, very.
Love those tannins, Tom.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Grant, pour away.
Yeah, based on those, and let's say you're wanting to go with so setting aside Nelly. By the way, the only current player I can think of who plays right and putts left is Yanni Sen, of all things.
Yep.
And she started doing that earlier this year because she had the putting yips, basically. She
Sound
finally
familiar,
made
Tom?
the cut the first time in ever, but she's on the end of her career. We're talking about up and coming. Couple of people come to mind. Pauline Rousson-Bouchard. All right. She loves to use the term fangs out. She wants the fangs out when she plays. She finished third at the Dow earlier this year, Dow Championship team event. She played with Manon Deroy of Belgium, who bombs it. Pauline is fiery as the day is long. I mean, she is bringing it every day to the point that she'll even say she's got to really be careful of how she talks to herself because she's just so demanding of herself. Golfers are often like that. But Pauline, who played at South Carolina collegiately, from France, as the name suggests, she lost her card on the LPGA Tour and went back to Europe and then came back and got her card from Q Series again. And she's had some good finishes this year. I think her best golf is still to come. And I just love the passion with which she plays. She's an absolute delight to hang out with, to be with. But like some players, when I'm walking the range, I'm going to, maybe I'll wait and watch and kind of wait for my opening to maybe say something, ask them something. When Pauline is grinding, it's like, nope, I'm just going to keep walking because she's not I'm in her office, and I'm very careful not to interrupt. I'm already treading lightly because I feel like I'm invading their turf. But Pauline, boy, she's a delight, and I think she's got personality to spare. I'm telling you, the EY twins are so fun. Both have now won. Akie won in Portland, and that is a notoriously claustrophobic golf course, Columbia Edgewater Country Club, massive Christmas trees lining the fairways. You get in those and good luck getting out. You can even lose a ball up in there. And she's just, so players will hit a lot of 3-woods, hybrids, whatever, just to position. She is bombing it. Brooke is that way. Brooke loves the driver. Brooke is going to hit driver more than she's not and risk it because she's so good at driving. But Akie, EY, Chisato, they've got these incredible personalities. They knew almost no English when they came to the U.S. at the start of the year. They've each done interviews in English this year. I cannot stress how impressive that is.
So hard.
These players who they always, when you're learning a language, you always know more than you can say, fluently. And they've been amazing. They've got so much personality. They're so fun to watch. Akie, a little bit more of a power player and loves to bomb it, and just oozing with personality.
And Tom, may I add, just so you know, with Akie, Tom, I know this will speak to you. Both of the EY twins have colored drivers, like the bright blue, bright pink head. Like, so take a look at that because I know that speaks to you.
My language.
There you go. See, and there you go. And sometimes, like last week, they played together the first 2 rounds. They'll wear the same thing. They're fraternal twins. In fact, I kind of thought it'd be funny, if we said 24 different winners, 23 events, but only 23 sets of chromosomes have won. But they're fraternal, so they actually do have slight differences. But another one that I think you'd like a lot with your criteria, Aussie. Maria right now is struggling. She lost her card last year. She's been playing Epson Tour and LPGA, but Maria won the NCAA championship at Arkansas back in 2019 and has threatened to win a couple of times on the LPGA Tour. She tends to, to turn it on in the second half of the season, but just hits it miles and miles. And if she can ever harness it, look out, because the talent is there. There's talent to spare. In terms of up and coming players, I'm excited about next year's crop. I mean, you're going to get Yana Wilson, who's just 19 years old. She's from Vegas. She's leading the Epson Tour money list, so she's already locked in her LPGA card for 2026. She's a U.S. Girls Junior champion from a couple of years ago. Yana just has this flair for the dramatic. Gianna Clement is a young player who is still up and coming, and she's still a teenager, not even college age yet. The future's really bright. Kiara Romero, who's from San Jose, goes to Oregon, University of Oregon. She got into the event in Portland, top 10. That got her into Canada, and she made the cut there. So it's really fun to see the churn, with these new, but we've said goodbye in the last couple of, Lexi's kind of in her final, she's cut back her schedule significantly, almost in half, as she said she was going to do last year. Brittany Linscombe's kind of stepping away. My colleague Morgan Pressel, Michelle Wee, these are players that we knew for so long. NB Park, the great NB, who won 7 majors. Those have kind of stepped away. Stacey Lewis is in her, kind of the sunset of her brilliant career. and yet we're just watching these great players from all over the world, including here in the U.S. come along. It's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. Looks like I have homework now.
Yeah.
I got my
There you
list.
go. I gave you some names, Tom.
I appreciate that. Thank you. In some of our prior episodes, we've done some player profiles to kind of let our audience learn about these people and me, myself included.
Sure.
We've done Charlie Hull and Gina
Charlie.
Tickhoon and Angel Yin, Grace Kim, and Lydia Ko was the most recent one. Would you suggest somebody that we are, a big blind spot that we've missed so far? Somebody that you cannot tell the story of the LPGA without?
Well, I love Gino's story. I mean, you've got, one of my all time, one of my absolute favorite parts about doing this job is trying to make sure I get these names right.
Yeah. Okay, let's
Because
pause on that for a second, Grant.
yeah,
That the first thing I said to Tom when I said I want Grant on this podcast was, this guy does not mess up a name, and I have learned every pronunciation just by listening to you. Because using Gino as the example, there are some names that do not sound the way they look.
no,
And the
not at all.
LPGA does a relatively good job of listing some pronunciation guides when needed. But
Yeah.
being able to just flow off the tongue, Padria Nanarukarn, like it was something you say all the
Very
time.
nice. Yeah.
The only reason I know it is because I will just listen to you on repeat. So if we have a player profile that we know as a pronunciation, you bet your butt I'm trying to find a broadcast where you've said it.
Yes.
So I can figure
now
out how
you've
to
got
say
my
it.
number. So now you can now you can hit me up that
Hey,
way.
Grant, can you send me a voice memo of how to pronounce this person's name?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first started covering the LPGA Tour, it was Dottie Pepper and Julie Inkster and Meg Mallon and Kari Webb and Rosie Jones and Annika Sorenstam. Annika would have been considered one of the harder names, and Sayri Pak, it was just coming on to the LPGA Tour at the time, and then with the influx of players from China, more from Korea, a ton from Thailand. There were really none from Thailand for, really until the early 2000s on a regular basis, when the Wan Glukiat twins were coming on, their Ari and Nari song Wan Glukiat. And so you just learn. I've got two or three go-to people. If it's someone that I haven't had a chance to meet and I just have seen their name on a leaderboard, it's not in a tournament I'm doing, but I'll ask, I've got a friend of mine who was a missionary in Thailand, so I'll ask him how to say this name in Thai. I've got my wife's former colleague is from China, so I'll ask him about Chinese names. But even like Miranda, you look at it, it looks like Wang in English. And then, to me, the simplest thing to do is what I love to do anyway, and that's just ask them. And sometimes they'll say it, and I can't quite say it the way they say it. But you at least do your best. And having done other sports, I've always felt like it's important that if I get anything else wrong, I'm going to get the name right. I'm going to make sure that I do right by them by at least doing my best to get their name as close as I can do it. So when Ayaka Pudaway came along to play in Evian, in 2021, she was still playing on the Japan LPGA Tour. And so I went and asked our colleague with the Japan, what amounts to the Japan Golf Channel, they call it Wow Wow, which is a great name for it, seeing as how many Japanese players are now winning on the LPGA. Wow Wow, they say that about every week. But so she said it's Furue, and so you might say Furu. What in English you might say Furu or whatever. And she says it's Fudaway. Okay, Fudaway. It's not Fudaway. It's more like Fudaway. Fudaway. And so you're not going to get it identical, but at least it's closer than Furu. Mm-hmm. We just had this in Boston. Miyu, who just won the AIG Women's Open. In English, we look at her name, Yamashita. It's just like Yamashita. So we don't even think, well, then you listen to how they would say it, how she would say it in Japanese, and it's closer to Yamashita. Okay, so I had said Yamashita before, so I do get them wrong, but I'm always wanting to ask and make sure I'm getting it as close as possible. And so now in Boston, I called her Yamashita because that's closer.
And I'm sure she appreciated that.
I I I hope so. For me, it's a way of dignifying and honoring these great players. And even if there are a lot of even players from the U.S. have names that I want to double check. Um, I mean, I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids, and I think these are human beings with families and parents watching, and I want to get it right if I can.
Tom, let's get Grant going on a couple off the course questions.
Not too far off the course. Grant, do you get to play rounds of golf when you're out on the tours? Do you ever get a chance to go and hit up the course either before or after the tournament? And
We do, and not the tournament itself, with very rare exceptions. Um, you might. I mean, maybe you'd play in a pro-am every now and then. Um, that's usually my colleague Tom Abbott's domain. He's kind of the master of the pro-am. But most of the time we'll go to a place around there. And because I work with, celebrities in the golf world, people like Morgan Pressel and Karen Stupples and Kay Cockrell and others who are great champions, in the game, they have so many connections and people they know that takes nothing really to make a phone call. And it's, it's undeserved for me to get to go play these places. But I mean, this year I've gotten to played Philly Cricket Club.
Okay.
Played Shadow Creek this year when I was out in Vegas for another event. You get to play some amazing places, and then a lot of hidden gems, places that people don't really know much about. Are these?
Well, let's keep it that way. We'll ask you about those off air. I don't want those places to become well known. I'll abuse the text thread for that one.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
what's the favorite club in the bag?
For me?
Yeah.
Boy, the one that I most recently hit a good shot with, and that varies. I mean, I'm not great, but I do love to play, and I don't know if you all are like this. I get on a roll, I get a bug, and I literally will go 5-6 months without playing once, and then I'll play 10 times, in 2 weeks because I'm off or whatever. So I love to play. I'm fortunate. I live here in West Texas, and Abilene Country Club's a great old golf course. Not, 100 and something years old, one of the courses, and the other one used to host a PGA Tour event back in the 80s. So I'm fortunate to be able to live near a course, and they are kind to let me to play. And I walk my dog, Rosie,
All right.
over there on the 12th fairway most mornings, and she runs around and she knows where to go and where not to go. I've gotten her well trained, but it's a great. There are a lot of perks to my job, and one of them is getting to play some really nice courses.
A lot of people don't know you do far more than golf. And you have been part of some pretty special calls in your career across the collegiate level, professional level for a lot of sports, not, most recently, 2024, the Paris Olympics.
Yeah.
We're curious. I'm going to file this into 2 categories, the golf and non-golf categories. We want you to answer both. And I'll leave this criteria somewhat flexible for you to go whichever way you want to take it. What are the most memorable, and I'm going to say calls, shots, moments that you've had a chance to be part of, whether it was your own call or something else, just the moments you've been part of? What comes to mind in the golf category, and every other sport you've been in, what comes to mind?
Yeah. It will be hard for anything to top Lydia Ko winning at St. Andrews. She had just come off winning the gold medal to get into the LPGA Hall of Fame. But incredibly, it had been 8 years since she had won a major championship. She was the youngest to ever win a major. She beat Morgan Pressel's record by a few months when she won Evian in 2015. The next year, she won the Chevron Championship out there in the desert. It's since moved to Houston, but she won it out there. And it looked like she'd never lose again. She almost won a third straight. She lost a playoff to Brooke Henderson at the women's PGA at Sahalee. Brooke beat her in a playoff. Brooke was a teenager at the time herself. But then she didn't win again. She hadn't won a major. And then for her to do it the way she did it, she hit one of the best shots of the year, I thought, a 3-wood on 17, the road hole at the old course. Perfect. Where, you know, par is coveted, and she hits in the rain, driving rain and wind. She hits this 3-wood right on the button, hits it up onto the green, 2 putts for par, then birdies 18 with a signature Lydia wedge. I don't think I'll ever forget that one. The setting, we were sitting right there, you know, on the 18th green, all right, on the 18th hole. That was memorable. In terms of men's golf, here's a weird one, but it was cool. I was blessed to be part of CBS's early years of their bonus coverage of the Masters. Back when streaming live sporting events was fairly new. And 2011, I was doing featured group coverage of the Masters. And you never know what you're going to get with featured group. It may look great on paper, but they both shoot 74 and they're never in it. You can't really pivot because you've got all the cameras dedicated to them. You can, but it's harder than people realize. And on that day, if you'll remember, Rory was up big, was up 4 going into the final round. And it looked like young Rory McIlroy, was going to run away with the Masters. And he shot 80, you know. And
was this where everyone had a chance in like the Fat Pat? Was it the Charles Schwartzel year?
Okay. Players with a chance. Our featured group was Charles Schwartzel, who only birdied the last 4 holes, which had never been done before. No one had ever birdied the last 4 to win the Masters. That was random, but it was good fortune. I got to tell you, a couple of other ones. Evian this year. I mean,
dude.
Grace Kim. I mean, I would defy any golf historian, anyone with Google, to find a better finish to any major, men's or women's. There hasn't been one. She played her last 6 holes in 7 under. She was out of it and made a double bogey at 12. You're thinking, oh, it's a good week, but she's not going to get it done. And she eagles 18, tap end. She almost made a 2 on the 18th so that was an eagle that got her into the playoff. Hits her second shot in the water on the playoff, takes a drop and pitches in for birdie to stay in the playoff. Miracle pitch in. And then Eagles on the second playoff hole to win. So that was awesome. In terms of other sports, there's one that I just can't imagine it would ever be topped. I went to a small private school called Abilene Christian University. I still live in Abilene, Texas. It's out here about 2 hours west of Fort Worth, right on I-20. We're a small Christian college. Went Division I in 2013. I've been the play-by-play guy for, full-time since 2007. But even when before that, I was doing it off and on around other things I was doing. And, so when you go D1, we move up from Division II, you have to wait. The NCAA makes you wait 4 years before you're eligible for the postseason. It's a probationary period. They want to make sure that you've got the infrastructure to last on the Division I level. They don't want someone to jump up to Division I, win the conference tournament, and then they have to go back to Division II because they don't have the money or whatever. I think it's 4 years is too long, but that's a different podcast. Our second year of eligibility for the NCAA men's basketball tournament, we win our conference tournament. We go and play Kentucky, get our doors blown off by 35 points, and it didn't matter. Oh my gosh, we're playing Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. And I was doing the radio broadcast. Well, the next year was COVID. There was no tournament. And then the next year we win our conference tournament again. The entire tournament that year was in Indianapolis. They were doing that for distancing reasons. and we played Texas in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Jeez.
And we are in it the whole way. They hit a 3 with about 15 seconds to go up by 1, 52-51. And I'm like, well, we gave it a run, but we're going to lose. Maybe this isn't going to happen. And our guy gets fouled with 1 second left. Joe Pleasant from Overland Park, Kansas. He steps to the free throw line with his team down 1, and he makes both free throws. And after he made the first, there'd been this whole David versus Goliath theme, the whole night, whole week. And after he made the first free throw, I said, does David have one more stone left in the sling? And so he drains the free throw. Texas inbounds it. Joe intercepts it. ACU shocks the world. And I said, Goliath has fallen and ACU had the stones. So when you're the team announcer, especially we're little old Abilene Christian, nobody knows who we are. We've had a great track program through the years with some Olympic gold medalists, but we've had some great football players go to the NFL through the years, but for the most part, we're little old Abilene Christian. So for us to beat mighty Texas it's just something. It was a magical night, the kind of thing you'll never forget. I also did a football game when we were in the D2 years that we won 93-68, a playoff game. We beat our arch rival, West Texas A&M. And at one point, we scored a touchdown to get to 72, and I said we were even par. And then we scored 93. We outscored our men's basketball team. We went to double overtime that day. Our football team outscored basketball. And so there have been some hilarious moments, but boy, those for different reasons. The golf, like Grace Kim or like Lydia. I've gotten to call Kari Webb and Annika Sorenstam through the years, and Julie Inkster winning, and for 25 years, Dottie Pepper, and I've gotten to call some of the greats and get to know some of the greats through the years. But when those are great fun because it's on an international, global stage. When you're part of a team and the players, they know you, and the coaches, and you went to that school. Those totally are cool.
Different. Those are really fun. That. First off, we always do some show notes. We're going to link that ACU upset. I was sitting with Tom when that upset happened.
Wow.
Tom and I take March Madness off every year. Shout out to our good bosses out there that allow this. Tom, how many years running is this tradition?
Since 2007, probably.
So every Thursday, Friday, opening week, because we start at the round of 64, not that early stuff. We're traditionalists, and when we think the tournament starts, not the playing. Same. We were sitting together watching those free throws happen, rooting for that. So we'll find that footage.
By the way, it was the last game of the night.
Oh, it was late.
It was on Saturday, and that was the year that they started Friday, Saturday because of COVID.
That's right.
Thursday, Friday. So we were playing late Saturday night, and I want to say Oregon had to cancel their game because too many of their players had COVID. They would have been opposite our game, but because they didn't play,
you got showtime.
Everybody who's still like you all, everyone's and if you weren't for Texas or if you didn't have them going deep in your bracket,
ACU
or Abilene Christian, let's go. I've never heard of them, and I'm for them.
Wow.
And so it was a magical night that I'll never forget. So thank you I'm glad to know that you were watching.
Yeah, we'll make sure we link that.
I'll send you my call. I've still got it.
Oh, please do. Please do.
I mean, we may go to the tournament again. We may win a game or two. We may go deep some year, but that first time, man, you just forget it.
Well, Grant, I feel like I would hope that this could be the first of many times we do this, because I feel like we could go forever on this, and especially if we get off the golf topic. But I can't thank you enough for helping us get started and really providing a platform for us to share more than, honestly, our two skill sets and knowledge sets. There's a ceiling to that, and you just provided an amount of knowledge that our audience, I'm sure, greatly benefited from. And We know it's an off week. We want you to enjoy your off week. We're between the FM Championship and then going to Ohio next week. So we want you to enjoy whatever it is an off week looks like for Grant Boone.
Football. Got a football game. Stephen F.
Perfect.
Austin's coming to town to Abilene.
SFA.
Take on the mighty Wildcats. You can catch it on ESPN Plus. You're more than welcome. And anytime you want to talk, I love talking the LPGA. We got to get more people talking about it. The stories out there are amazing. I am convinced, I'm biased, but as I tell my colleague Morgan Pressel when I compliment her, just because I'm biased doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Ooh, I like that.
I think the LPGA is the best tour in the world right now. I think the PGA Tour is in this period of feeling out where they are.
Yeah.
You've got the live guys having Ryder Cup will be fun. 100%. I can't wait to watch it. But the week to week tour is not the same as it used to be. It's good. I enjoy it, but the LPGA has so many great stories right now. And and I feel like a burden in the best possible definition to do my best to tell these stories of not just the Nellies, but of the Miranda Wongs as well, and these up and coming players. I love getting into the weeds. I'm a nerd at heart, and I love, but little moments can turn into big career changing, career defining experiences. And when you see it happen and you say, hey, that player's that's her third straight top 15. Okay. No one's going to notice that, but those are the little moments you pay attention to because sometimes it becomes something big. So anytime you want to chat, you know where to find me.
We appreciate that, Grant. That's fantastic. And next time you're on, I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions about Buc-ee's because I see your Tumblr in the back.
Buc-ee's.
And out here in San Diego, we don't have Buc-ee's in San Diego, and I hear nothing but fantastic things. And I'm already going to send Mark a list of golf courses we can go play in Texas or in the South, and just go visit Buc-ee's.
It's the Taj Mahal of convenience stores. Your life will never be the same.
Yeah.
Neither will your credit card.
Perfect.
Ooh,
perfect.
right.
With that, Grant, thank you again so much. I think that's a wrap, Tom, for this week's episode. So again, thank you everyone so much for listening. And Grant, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.